Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Exploring Photography right here on Adorama TV, brought to you by Adorama. It's the camera store that has everything for photographers like you and like me. Well, I am joined here by Natasha, and we are in an environment that you probably shoot in all the time. We have a really bright outside, big windows, and a really dark inside. What we want to do is I want to take a picture of Natasha inside and make sure I also capture the light from the outside and balance those two things. Well, how do we do that? Well, there are a bunch of different ways to do it, but essentially what we want to do is we want to use an external flash to add the appropriate amount of light to our scene while still capturing the ambient light to the best of our ability. That's a lot of words, but basically what it means is I have to first figure out how much light I need to have coming from my flash. That's the appropriate amount of light. I need to make it flattering. In other words, I need to use some kind of light modifier to make Natasha look great. And then I have to figure out how to set my camera so that I don't just get something that looks nasty. I need to have that ambient light coming in and capturing as much as I possibly can so those two things blend together. So we're going to do that in 3 different ways today. Now the easiest way to do this, and if you're shooting maybe summer family photos or Christmas portraits or something where you just need to do something really quick and easy and fast, is to use this. This is your trusty old Speedlight. And the nice thing about Speedlights is they have a feature built in to do exactly what you're trying to do. So to do this, what we're going to have you do, so Natasha's going to come over here and we're going to have her maybe looking at some flowers and thinking, oh, it's spring. So what we're going to do, the first thing that we need to do is to make sure that our flash is set to the correct mode. And so you want to put this on TTL mode or ETTL mode if you have a Canon flash. That's the standard default mode. And then you have to turn on something called high speed sync. Now I've already done that for this flash. We've done a bunch of videos on high speed sync, so make sure you check those out to know exactly how to do that, or check your user manual. So the flash is in ETTL mode on high speed sync. Now your camera, what we want to do is to put this on aperture priority mode. So AV on a Canon, A on most other cameras. So that means we can set our aperture. The camera is going to figure out the correct shutter speed. On aperture priority mode, what the camera will do is first expose for the ambient light and then adjust the flash automatically so that those two things match. It all just happens magically. So once we've done that, let's see exactly what we get. So Natasha is going to be looking at those flowers just like that. Beautiful. That looks pretty good. We have one issue, and that is when I take a picture, the flash is bouncing off the window, and so I need to make sure I'm at an angle, and so that flash isn't bouncing into my picture, but it works pretty well. I can also try to bounce off the ceiling, but the problem with that is you just need so much light that, well, sometimes it doesn't work out. So this is great if you need something that works really fast, if you're shooting something that's not really expansive, maybe 1 person or 2, and if you're working in a situation where we're going to have really bright sunlight. If you're doing those types of things and we want a little bit more flattering light, a little bit better control, we need to go to the next step up. And that's an off-camera flash system that we can use, maybe a softbox or an umbrella. So let's do that next. Well, those were a good start. Now the issue though with the Speedlight is it's such a small light source that it has lots of specular highlights. In other words, if we look really closely at the picture that we shot of Natasha, you can see that her cheek is all shiny. It looks like she's sweating, and it's not even hot in here. And so we want to make sure that we're really complementary to our subjects. And so instead of using a really small light source like a Speedlight, we're going to go to the next step, and that is to use a small off-camera flash softbox. So Natasha, if you'll zip over there, let me show you how I have set this up. So this is a 2-foot Octabox from Profoto on an OCF off-camera flash system. Now the nice thing about the Profoto OCF system is it has high-speed sync. So I'm doing exactly the same thing I did with my Speedlight. I'm using the TTL through the lens metering of my camera, and I have set my remote here to make sure that I have it set to high-speed sync and TTL mode. In other words, it's fully automatic. Then I'm using this nice softbox here, and that's going to soften the light so that Natasha's face isn't so shiny. I can position this and start shooting. Now, one of the things that is great about having an off-camera flash is I can change the direction of that light and that helps me avoid reflections in the glass. It also helps me shape the light in the way that I want to do that. And so without further ado, we're going to start shooting and I'll show you my results. Well, there's a third scenario that we haven't talked about, and that is using a fully manual system. So I have over here, I've got a Profoto Acute 2 pack. Now, why would I want to use something that doesn't have TTL when I'm doing something that's this difficult? Well, the reason is if you want to do something a little bit more creative. So, for example, we want a full-length shot. Maybe we want a wide angle of the interior of the room. We need a lot more light. And to make that light look pleasing, we need a much larger light modifier, and that means we need more power. And more power comes from those manual systems. They're 1200, 24, 4800 watt seconds. They're really, really punchy. And so we have to figure out how to do this. It's not as complicated as you might think. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the ambient light, because we can't control it. We have to react to it. We can't turn the sun up and down, and we can't shut things on and off outside. We have to take what we can get. So we have to start there, and then we'll make our adjustments to our flash to match that. So we're going to do a little trick here, because outside we have a really contrasty bright light, and if I include the trees and the sky, well, I'm going to have all kinds of problems. But the trees are actually darker than the sky, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to meter on the trees out there using my camera's built-in TTL metering. It's really simple. I'll put my camera in manual mode. I'm going to set my shutter speed at my camera's sync speed. So when we're using an external manual flash, we have the sync speed, which is the fastest our shutter can go. On this camera, I'm going to stick to a 1/200th of a second. You might have a camera that does 250, maybe it's 160, but for today, we're going to stick with 200 just to make sure everything is fine. Then I'm going to adjust my aperture until my meter shows me a proper exposure. And because we're dealing with bright light, I'm keeping my ISO really low. So I'm shooting at ISO 100. So ISO 100, shutter speed of 200. I point at these trees out here. I take a meter reading, and I get a value of f4, which is great. That means we still get that shallow depth of field that we want. Now the next thing is to meter our flash. So Natasha, if you can go over here, we've given her a nice grape juice drink to emulate maybe a nice cocktail party or something. And then what I have to do is I'm going to meter toward this light. And so I've got everything set up with my pocket wizards. I meter that. It meters at 3.2, so I just need to make an adjustment. I'll do that, take another meter reading. Now we're at F4, yeah. So ISO 100, shutter speed of 200, F4. So now my flash and my ambient light agree, and I can start taking pictures. Now, one of the things I want to do in this situation is to sort of eliminate a lot of the clutter in the room. And so I'm going to use a long lens. So I'm going to walk way over here and start taking pictures. So I'll do that, and I'll show you the before and after results. There you have it, 3 ways to balance your flash with the ambient light. It's not so difficult. Make sure you use high-speed sync if you can, and if you're using a manual flash, start with the ambient light, tune everything in, and then just balance your flash to that, and you'll get some great results. Thanks, Natasha, for being a wonderful model today. I think we got some really good pictures. And don't you forget to subscribe to Adorama TV. It's absolutely free. Just click the button and subscribe today. Also, check out the Adorama Learning Center. There are tons of articles for doing flash photography and light modifiers and rear curtain sync and high-speed sync and all of those kinds of things. Check it out. Again, it's free, so do that. Thanks again for joining me, and I will see you again next time.